So our topic today is 5 key steps to maximize your time and build your business. And I'm excited about this, David, because this is one of, I think because I'm a doer, I want to be making sure that I am moving forward. I'm taking action. But I think that this is something that I've been studying for a few years about time management or productivity. And there's just some things that I've learned that I've implemented that have really been, incredibly crucial for my success to where I am today, and where I know that I still need to tweak and be mindful of it. But I wanted to share this today because I think that how we manage our time does alter how effective or ineffective our business building is. And so there's a lot of things that we can be busy doing, like we said, but what are the things that matter most? So the first thing I want to just bring up is, here's the harsh reality. Time is your one non-renewable resource. When it's gone, it's gone. And too many of us squander our time each day because we're not strategic in how we utilize it. And the simple statement is we're too busy being busy a lot of times. And I see this in myself. I see this in others. I see that we can easily be that busy person and feel like we're really, in a lot of ways, spinning our wheels in the mud. And we don't want you to be doing that. We don't want anybody to be struggling like that, because your message, your product, your service matters too much to the people that need it. And but this is a reality. When we get done with this training today, this time is gone, and we can't get it back. So are we making the most of this time that we're on today? Are we making the most of each moment that we have in our days and our lives? So that's the harsh reality. And so here's a few causes behind the problem of that. And here's what I'm seeing happening to many people. First thing is, we're scattered chasing too many distractions. We know that the world is a distracting place, whether it's online or offline. We are chasing so much. I believe it's a Chinese parable or Japanese parable saying, when you chase two rabbits, you catch neither, idea. And I think that's where a lot of us get in this business building journey. And so I really think that we need to be mindful of that. David, are we seeing the slide deck okay?
Yeah, I think I just added it. I think it wasn't the slide deck there, but I added it to the stream, so I think the slides are showing now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just looking at my phone. I wasn't.
Missed.
Yep, I see it now. So anyway, so we're scattered with too many distractions. The other thing is that we're paralyzed by having too many options. This is also, it's kind of like, I've heard the analogy of like a child walking into a candy store with walls of candy as their options, and they can't decide, because they want a little bit of everything. And if you told them to go pick one thing, they'll be there for hours, and I think that we get paralyzed in decision making. And one of the things, I've even talked to corporate leaders a lot, even recently, about 2020 with COVID and everything. I saw this in the first 3 to 6 months of the COVID season, where leaders there was just decision fatigue. They were making so many extra decisions that they normally didn't have to make to keep their people safe, or to make policies and procedural changes for all the things that have happened through COVID. And I saw them be exhausted. And then what I started to see in the last few months is, I think the general population is exhausted. Yeah. And because there's so much to think about, right? It's families thinking about schooling for their kids, or it's people thinking about their careers. Maybe they're working from home trying to navigate that, or maybe they lost their job or laid off or furloughed or whatever. There's just all this stuff, right, that people are dealing with. And so we get paralyzed by having too many things to think about, or too many choices, even if they're good choices. So we're scattered with our distractions. We're paralyzed by too many options. We lack confidence in our choices. I think in business building, and there's all these options out there I could do that thing, or I could do this thing. I could offer that product or service. And so if I haven't had success in the past, what's the right one to choose becomes our hang up. And so we can lack confidence depending on where you are in your journey. And that's a cause of this problem that I see. And then another is, we've not learned how to manage our time well. We have been being busy, like I said early, but we also, we really haven't taken the time to really study, how can I make the best use of my time. And so that's why I wanted to offer this today, because I think there really are 5 key steps we can take that'll help us with our time, which will ultimately help us with our business building journey. And so how can we address this? First, we need to realize there is a better way to live and work. most of us, even if you're fairly good with time management, so to speak, you can always get better. There's always fine tuning we can do, but some of us, there's some very basic things that we just need to put into play that maybe today will be kind of eye opening to you. Or maybe you'll just pull out a nugget here and there where you're saying, you know what, I need to do that better. I need to do that more. I need to do this less. Sometimes it's cutting out things of your schedule that matters the most to give you margin. So we need to realize that. We also need to make a commitment to grow in this area. That there are, the more we can grow and understand time management and productivity skills, the better we can become, the more effective we can become. And I know for me, David, years ago, I took like a $2,000 productivity course because I was like, I was really serious about wanting to make the most of my time. And it was a big investment, and it was one that really stretched me. But the lessons I learned, that I started to implement, this really started to make a big difference in my career at the time, in my day job, and then certainly in my business building. So we need to make a commitment to grow somehow, some way, and invest in ourselves. And then we need to find what works best for you and act. So, David, I'm sure what works for you and your time management is not the same process that probably works for me or to the next person. We all kind of are wired differently, and some of us need certain things. I have a friend who loves to schedule things out in like a Excel spreadsheet and look at it that way. I don't like to do that. I use my calendar very strategically though, and so for me, it's doing that. And so each of us kind of have a different way of working that is best for us. But the key is find what works for you and act on it, because knowing it without action isn't going to get you anywhere. So those are keys to really think about as we go through these 5 key steps. And so key number 1 is evaluate your schedule. Mm-hmm. Evaluate your schedule. Track your time. I've done this with people I was leading over the years. I would say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, let's do a time study. Let's see where you're investing your time or spending your time. And it's been eye-opening every time that I've done that personally, or I've done that with others, because many times our days get away from us, or we don't realize where we're actually using our time. And is it the wise use of it, or is it, just being lazy, or is it being, unwise in how we're spending time in ways that really aren't getting us anywhere. So first, I recommend doing like a time study of yourself. And I always say do it like a couple weeks, because 1 week is a snapshot, but 2 weeks you start to see patterns. And if you do 2 weeks, and I always say do like 15-minute increments from like the time you get up to the time you go to bed, because you might spend 15 minutes here or 2 or 3 hours on other things. You just mark that out. And then when you get into this process a little further, this will all help you have some data to work with. And then you need to examine your findings. What do you see as you're tracking your time? Are you seeing that you're spending your time unwisely, or are you truly investing it into the activities or the people that matter the most? And so track your time, then examine your findings, and then consider your possibilities. This is where you kind of dream about, okay, if I change this, then what would that mean? How would that affect this? Or how would my outcome be? And so there's kind of this, determine your current reality, study that, see where you are as a starting point or a baseline, and then start to think about, well, if I did these things differently, what would be different? So you start to maybe have a little vision casting there. And then that moves us to the second key, which is clarifying your priorities. So once you've evaluated your time, you clarify your priorities, and part of it is to determine what matters most for your business development. The Pareto principle is that 20% of what you do gives you 80% of your results. And so many times it's easy to do the 80% of stuff that can keep you busy, but only gives you 20% results. So we get it flip-flopped a lot of times. And and honestly, folks, here's the challenge, I think, for us when we're building online businesses, is that we need to be online, but online can suck us into this vortex that we can get trapped in. And so, you think, well, I'm going to jump on Facebook and check things out, kind of connect with some people, for a few minutes, and all of a sudden it's an hour later and you're like, where did the time go? Right. And so we need to be diligent. But when you determine what matters most for your business, then you can be mindful of that, and you can really, it's a big part of clarifying these priorities. Then you need to embrace your business purpose. What is your purpose? What are you trying to accomplish? What is your vision for your business? And you're serving your clients, or you're producing products or whatever for your customers. Are these activities that you're currently doing, are they fulfilling that purpose? So if you looked at that time study and you go, okay, are those things I'm seeing on my time study, are they actually fulfilling my purpose, or are they distracting or detracting from them? And that's where you start to list distractions or conflicting actions that are holding you back from greater success. And so basically, there's a lot of this is kind of the front end pieces of it is kind of researching and seeing what your current reality is. Because as we continue on in these steps, then you'll start to be able to implement some things that'll help you really move the needle, I think. So we move to key number 3, which is to create a plan. So after you've done this other stuff and you kind of have this snapshot, you're starting to prioritize, you're starting to see what matters most. Now it's time to create your plan. And you do that first. I like to do it is kind of create a dream week schedule. What is, if everything was humming along the way you wanted to, what does that week look like? And start, whether it's Sunday through Saturday or Monday through Friday, however you want to do it, block off, I always say, get a spreadsheet, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, and just kind of put, your waking hours on that and fill in those blocks. What do you want to do from this time to this time, What does that look like? What does your dream week schedule look like? What would you be doing where you're loving life? Everything's going the way you want it to go with your business, even include your personal time, your family time, all that's involved in your life. Create that, because part of this online business opportunity is to build a business that is lifestyle friendly. Some people want to build a business that is leads them to financial freedom. I'm sure most of us would want that, but a lot of it is time freedom. And so, what is it that allows you to have that type of lifestyle freedom that you choose? For me, I've got younger kids right now, still in this season of life, and so I'm busy coaching their sports or taking them to their activities and school things or whatever. It's I want my business to support the family stuff, and so part of my dream week is making sure that I can start and end at a reasonable time each day in what I'm doing, so that I can be with my family and give them the best of my time. So that's where I am. But I know in a few years, my kids will be grown up and out of the house, hopefully, right, David?
You keep trying, but it tends to be a slow eject process.
Yeah. So, but once again, create what your dream would look like and go from there. And then kind of determine best practices to implement that schedule. So what is it going to take for you to take your dream and make it reality? What do you need to do? What do you see other people doing that allow them to have the freedom or the focus that they have? Start to study that a little bit more. What are the activities you need to do? What are the ways you need to schedule yourself or protect your time or whatever? What are your best practices to implement? And then start to optimize your calendar. This is where you take that dream week schedule and you start to plug in blocks inside your actual real calendar to start slowly moving towards the dream week. And I want to encourage those of you who are building a business on the side of a day job, because one of the things that I thought about as I was even putting this together is that, if you're working a typical 9-to-5 type schedule in a day job, you might feel like, well, I don't really have the ability to create my dream week. And I just want to say, we need to work in the margins of our commitments, right? So with Darren Hardy, I heard him say one time that we can really only control what happens before 8 a.m. and after 8 p.m. in our schedule, because what happens from that 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. time window of those 12 hours is kind of up in the air, because there's different interruptions. That's when the world's really active and busy, and with work or commitments and all these things. And so, what can you do before 8 a.m.? What can you do after 8 p.m.? And so you kind of optimize your calendar in the margins of time that you have. And I'll just use myself as an example. I wrote my first book in a 30-day period before I went to my day job, and I blocked myself for an hour and a half every morning for 30 days. And I just went to town, and I had laser focus I worked hard to have a good outline, have a good process I wanted to go through, because I knew I had limited time. And so I set myself in my chair, every day for 30 days. And I wrote that manuscript and I got that draft done. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I optimized my calendar and realized, I don't have all this free time during the day at this season of my life. So I've got to do it the way I can. And so it forced me to become, I used to be a night person, and it forced me to become an early riser. And so I used to stay up late and struggle to get up in the morning. Now I go to bed early, and I get up early. And people joke with me like, don't call Chris after 8:30 or 9 o'clock. You never know if he'll be awake or half asleep. So, but I had to kind of flip my schedule in my life, because if I was going to maximize my time, I had to do something different. And so when I did that, it changed everything, allowed me to do what I want to do. And so for you, you may have to do that. Maybe it's a lunch hour that you need to maximize if you have a day job and you're needing to create a course or a program or write a book or whatever your thing is, put together your message if you're a speaker, or make calls if you need to make some sales calls or whatever for your business as you're building it. Whatever that looks like, start to look at the margins of your day and be intentional with that, and optimize your calendar so it's moving at least toward your dream. And then key number 4 here is command your plan. So once you've created a plan, you need to command it, and you need to strategize weekly. I kind of look at it from like Friday or Sunday. Friday is kind of like a good time to kind of look back on the last few days. What worked well this week, what didn't. Sunday is a good time. Sunday evening before the week begins again, you're kind of like, okay, what's coming up? What do I need to make sure I'm focused on? That may look different to you. That's just kind of what I do. Maybe your days are different, but you're strategizing. You're looking ahead and making sure that your calendar makes sense for your goals. You need to execute daily. One of the things I've said before, I don't know if I've said in any of these trainings, but I use this idea of, time blocking, where I say, I tell my calendar what I need to do, and then I let my calendar later tell me what I need to do. And so it's the phrase I use is block it out and knock it out, from an execution. Block your time and knock out that activity, whether it's 15 minutes or 2 hours or all day, whatever it is, schedule it, block it, and execute on that thing so that you can be most effective. And then you need to evaluate consistently. And when I say that, I'm thinking, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, every 6 months, annually, whatever that looks like for you to truly evaluate, build into a rhythm of evaluation of how's it going? Am I moving closer and closer to my dream week that I want? So that's key number 4. And then key number 5 is guard your schedule. And the first step in that is rejecting time wasters. And that's why I talked about, it's easy to get on social media and all of a sudden find yourself lost, an hour later, or even worse sometimes. You need to really be intentional about, okay, if I'm going to get on, maybe set an alarm on your phone if you need to, like I'm going to get on for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and that's it. And make it something that you're diligent about. Or maybe it's spending too much time talking to friends throughout the day because you've got freedom of your schedule, but maybe you are wasting time on non-income producing or non-creation, type activities that are actually slowing you down or holding you back. So reject whatever that is, start to protect your schedule from that. And then also protect your peak performance time. Are you a morning person, afternoon person, night person? When do you work best? For me, if I tried to get things done in the evening, especially now because I've shifted my schedule, I wouldn't get things done. Years ago, pre-kids and just the different season of life, being a night owl was fine for me. I would actually get a lot of things done at night because it was kind of calm and quiet, after my wife went to bed and I just had that time, then I was productive. And so I know some people are. For me, like I said, that flipped to the mornings, but you need to protect whatever time it is for you. If you're better in the morning, protect that for the work that you need to do that's most, I would say, demanding or mentally demanding, because you want to be fresh creating your product, your service, or working on your messaging or whatever it may be. So protect that. And then also, just to kind of think of it from a monetary side of things, invest, don't spend your time. And think about what's your return on your investment. When you invest money, you're expecting a return. When you spend money, it's gone. And so the same is true with your time. Are the activities you're doing today, are they building for your future? Are they compounding interest like money does in when you're saving for your retirement? So are you investing or are you spending? And really think about that. And that's where that time study comes into play, is if I've been doing these activities, are they giving me a return to build my business the way I want it to? Or are they wasting my time? Are they holding me back? Are they distracting me, from what I really need to be doing? So that's where wisdom has to come into play here. So guard your schedule. But I just want to give you some quick tips here on moving forward for success. First, schedule time to work through these 5 key steps. I really encourage you. Maybe you need to go back and watch the recording later. Just kind of think through some things, whatever it may be. Maybe there was like you're sitting and thinking, "Well, I do those things well, but maybe these other things I don't," and I need to really think about this next step. So schedule time to work through that. Be intentional with your time to evaluate your schedule, to prioritize, to take action on these things that we've talked about today. Also, experiment to see what works best for you. Like I said earlier, what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for the next person. What works for them isn't going to work for me. I know people who love to have Post-it notes everywhere, and that's how they kind of track things that they work on. For me, I've got a stack literally of Post-it notes here that I'm like, okay, I write them down Post-it notes, and I end up with a stack, and I don't really, I have to keep sorting through them, and I'm like, I need a better system. I need to write these down in one place where I can really, be good about doing things. And for me, one of the things that I learned was if it's important enough to be on my to-do list, it needs to get on my calendar, because if it gets on my calendar, I'll take care of it. It'll get done. But if I am waiting to go back to a to-do list that has no real defined deadline or time frame, I'm just not good at really making progress, or it feels like it just keeps growing and I never get anywhere. And so that was something I had to experiment with and learn myself. It may be different for you, maybe the exact same. Also, be consistent. Once you kind of figure out what works for you, then be consistent with it. If you're going to look at on, let's say, Friday at 4 p.m., I'm going to kind of evaluate my week, and I'm going to look at my calendar and make sure next week is set up well so I can really be engaged with my family or friends or whatever I'm doing this weekend. Be consistent with that. If I'm going to look ahead on Sunday nights to kind of just get my mind engaged in the work week ahead, then be consistent with that. Whatever it looks like for you, build consistency into it and have a system so that you can truly move forward successfully. And then finally, like I said, schedule time to evaluate your progress. Look at things monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually, whatever. One of my mentors, I heard him talk about this years ago, said, as soon as Christmas Day kind of wraps up and family stuff is kind of done, he's like, I get so excited for the next week, because he spends that next week really studying his calendar from the previous year. And he goes through month by month and looks at all of his appointments, looks at everything he's done for that last 365 days, essentially, and said, okay, these are the things that were good. These are the things I need to do more of. These are the things that I should do less of, or these are the things I should not do anymore. And so on an annual basis, he's kind of evaluating his year and saying, okay, how can I fine tune this so that next year is even better? And so, once again, it's like, you don't be upset because you maybe wasted time this past year. Just learn from that and then say, you know what, this next year and this is the perfect time to be doing this, right? These last couple of weeks of the year where we're looking ahead saying, look, here's the things that were positive this year. And here are the things that worked, here are the things that didn't. And I need to make sure that I guard myself from that and protect my schedule. So if you'll do these things, I know there's kind of a lot, just to think about here, but that's why I want to encourage you to kind of review these and say, okay, where am I in this process? Do I have a good snapshot of where I am today, where I want to be, and am I taking the steps to move toward that? And the dream week schedule to your reality isn't going to happen overnight most of the time, especially if we're working on a side business to try to get it up and running, launched and growing so that we can get away from a day job. It takes time. Even if you are able to be free to do your business full time, still the success path or the development of that takes time. And so where you want to be isn't going to happen overnight. It's a journey. And just like David said last week, we have ups and downs. And so we need to just be ready for that. And so just work through these and think about, how does my time impacting positively or negatively the vision I have for my business or the success of my business, and just kind of use this as a tool to really see, how can I make the next year even better? How can I make next week, next month, next quarter successful based on the things that I'm seeing as I really evaluate where I am today? So, David, I know that was kind of fast and furious in a lot of ways, but it's a lot, I think, that we can really implement and really put some meat into.
Yeah, I think the key to all that is the discipline.
Yeah.
It's the execution piece of Like, I know for me, like too many times there are, I have to be diligent about even the appointments that I allow to be scheduled. Like,
Mhm.
because you can let people get on your calendar and schedule meetings and this, and then you're on it and you're like, why am I here? Why am I in this call? And why
Yeah.
am I doing this? Because I have a long laundry list of things that I should be working on, and I'm stuck over here in a meeting that doesn't need to be. I don't need to be here. I don't need to be on this
Yep.
call at all. And it just, you need to ask questions like, okay, what is the call about? What are we going to, what's the purpose? What are we going to be
Yep.
discussing? And then you can evaluate, does this need to involve me? If it doesn't need to involve me, then why do I need to sit here and kill another hour on something that doesn't really impact me or involve my doing something? And so,
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, one of the things I've noticed throughout 2020 I used to have a lot of coffee meetings, right? Like people would want to get together. I'd want to get together with people. But what I realized was using like Zoom or, any type of online video, like I saved probably an hour, because normally, it's, let's just say an average of 30 minutes on the front end and the back end of travel time for meetings. And then you meet, maybe even if you are focused for that hour, you still have an hour on, combined on the front end and back end. And so now it's like, I love jumping on, like, okay, let's do a Zoom call at 1. And then, that by 1:30 or 2, you're done and there's no traveling. Right. So I can be more effective. And I think that I think companies are realizing that there's some effectiveness in that. The traveling is a lot of time wasting for a lot of business leaders and business owners. Whereas now utilizing this technology is so helpful to actually redeem some time in their days.
Oh, I agree. And I think a lot of these companies are realizing, I think for a long time, people didn't trust that people would be productive if they weren't in the office, in the cubicle, or sitting there where they can monitor them. And they've realized that all these people can now be very productive. And in many ways, they're more productive because they're not
Sure.
distracted by coworkers coming up to their desk and asking them questions, or getting stopped in the hallway by someone for something. It's just, if you want to talk, you got to schedule a call. And otherwise it eliminates a lot of the chatter, and you can just be focused on, I got to do this, I got to do this, and I got to do this, and get it done, as opposed to all the other stuff that happens. So
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's been an eye-opening year for that, for sure. And I think that's why, even what we're talking about through these trainings is just, there's such an advantage to doing business online. And even if you have an offline portion of your business, there's so much that we need to bring online now, or do, for whether it's looking for new clients and customers, or engaging with them, in different ways. I had actually a client, business client, was it 2 weeks ago, said, that an in-person meeting wasn't going to be able to happen the way that we had initially scheduled it. And so I created my training. I was going to do a half-day workshop. I actually created like 3-part training and videos, sent them the links, and then had them just schedule a Zoom call with me to follow up later when they had time in their schedule. I wouldn't have been, I'd been kind of thinking about that before, but now I'm like, okay, I've got an option now. I've got a course that I can basically create by doing this. So that could even be a standalone option, or it can be a value add to my in-person clients if I just give them access to the trainings that they can go back to and review. And so I think we're seeing like some really cool things kind of happen as we realize how to utilize technology. But at the same time, we do need to realize, like I was saying earlier in this, that technology can also become a distraction if we're not careful. So it's a fine line we walk.
Right. Yeah. And if you're going to be successful going forward, you have to be online. I just think that's, I think if 2020 has taught us anything, that is the truth that we all have to face and live with. Any business that was, in person and didn't have like a small business owner who had a local store but did not have an online presence, they got absolutely creamed in 2020, and a huge percentage of them don't even exist anymore. And the reality is, if you don't have that online channel as a way to make sales, as a way to generate revenue for your business, you're in trouble. And so that's why I believe, like, all the things that we're teaching here, all the things that we're covering and doing are so critically important for anyone who wants to be entrepreneurial or who wants to have a business, is that you have to go online. That's, you know, this, if we've learned anything this year, we have to learn that. We have to understand that if you're not there, you have a major risk that you can get. You know, what if there's in the future another shutdown or something that happens? You know, you've just put yourself in a terribly difficult position to survive, and you need to have another way. You need to have a way online that you can generate income for yourself. So that's I'm happy to share all the things and all the trainings and things that we're doing is to help people figure that out.